Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome to the Dear Love Podcast. You can catch us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Listen Notes, Google Music, Podbean, all that good stuff. You already know how this go. Let's get right into it. Had a very interesting day yesterday. We had a little birthday dinner for my sister. I shouldn't say little. You know, she's getting older now. You got to accept that, you know. You so used to being like the older one and watching the sibling come up, and they're finally coming into their own. So happy birthday to her. Even though it was like a million days early since she's leaving town. But a lot of things took place. For one, we finally got our grandmother out of the house. And it's been a while that we all sat down and did something, even eating dinner, you know. So it was a real good look. We went to Texas Roadhouse. Now it's funny because when you think Texas Roadhouse, again, you think big, you know, you think the cowboy hats and steak and, you know, cowboy stuff, right? Well, you know, it's always one person, like I always say, it's one person out of the group that just messes up everything. So it's my sister. She has her friends with her. It's our cousins, you know, our little brother, nephews. Everybody's there, aunts. So, you know me, I always got to be the weird one. The lady comes around. First of all, when you make reservations for somewhere, what's the point of doing reservations if you're not going to get in when you're supposed to? Isn't that the reason we reserved an area for a certain amount of time? I mean, come on now. So she reserved it for 6:30. Cool, right? Not cool. So again, we get there and we're sitting there for an extra 45 minutes because they say, oh, well, you know, if we want everybody to sit together, we got to make room. Cool, right? But then I read a sign that says, well, they're not going to sit everybody anyway unless the party's all together. You know, black people are always late. So some of them was late, but we all managed to get there and we sitting down. And that's when the fun started. Because I'm looking at the menu and yeah, I don't eat beef anymore, so, or, you know, pork. And I'm just looking and I'm like, man, this steak looks good, but it's not for me. So I ended up getting like the cactus blossom, which is like the, you know, the onion rings kind of like in a, I guess, cactus shape, I guess. But it's like, and you get your little sauce in the middle. And I just got some boneless wings. Now, I know that sounds real tacky when you at a dinner to just get like some boneless wings and a cactus blossom, but that's all I really wanted. And then I watched my grandmother and my mom and my aunts and my sister and cousin and everybody getting steak and stuff. And I'm just looking like, man, you know what? I might have to cheat today. Dear Love, episode 57. Man, these episodes are really getting up there, aren't they? Now, after the dinner, of course, like I said, I got chicken and all of that. Guess who the driver was? First of all, another accomplishment for me. My mom finally let me drive her car. And she finally let me drive her around. And you know what I thought about when I was doing that? I said, man, I don't think we realize how much trust it takes to sit in the car with somebody. I think we don't really let that register. When you sit on that passenger side, you really are trusting the person that's on the driver's side with your life. And it just makes me think about how everybody always say, oh man, I don't want to get on a plane because things happen. Yeah, well, things happen anyway. You know, you just got to kind of live life. So when you sitting on that passenger side, I remember when I first got my license and I used to basically just drive myself. So when let's be clear, not drive myself my whole life. I'm saying when I first got my license, it was just me in the car after I had got my license. So when I started actually riding with people or letting somebody get in the car with me, it felt weird at first. It was kind of like I was nervous. It's like, all right, Teray, remember everything that you learned about driving. Just think of it as nobody in the car with you. Just look at it as somebody. You can't, okay? Let's just say what it is. You can't really imagine it as nobody in the car because they're right there. So you think about people like on their cell phones talking and laughing and ha 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 and turning up the music. And it's like, hey, I'm trying to concentrate on me and your life right now. And you don't seem to care that much. So actually sit back and think. How many times you were a passenger this week and how many times you were the driver? Now, my grandmother's in the back seat and I dropped my sister off. And then, I tell my grandmother to get in the front seat and she said, no, you're the chauffeur. And that's exactly how she said it. And I just started laughing like, wow, I am being a chauffeur right now. Like I'm taking everybody where they got to go. And again, it's a weird feeling because now that I'm used to people riding in the car, but hell, I was a passenger for so long. I remember my cousins driving me all around and everything. And now that I think about it, I trusted him with my life. But man, you put so much trust into that person. So I kind of get how we don't really pay attention to that because it's like it's people we know, obviously, most of the time. But another thing that made me start thinking about this stuff is, like I said, with Ubering and all of these things, that's why people look at it so weird. You getting in a car with a total stranger and you're depending on them to get you where you're going. But at the same time, it's kind of like when you get on that plane. You got to trust that the pilot knows what he's doing. And just because they had a license and things, don't mean that they can drive. Don't mean that they know what they're doing. That's something I had to really think about. Being a passenger for so long. Because if I remember correctly, I was like a late bloomer with the license. I think I was 21 or 22, somewhere around there. But I had friends that had they license at 16, took driver's classes and all of that. But just the amount of trust it takes to depend on that person behind the wheel. So, I ride with my son a lot and I think about that too. Because he don't realize it, but again, trusting somebody with your life. And we trust a lot of people with our life and we don't realize it. Hell, eating somebody's cooking, drinking something someone gave you, going to the bar, hoping that the drink is okay, going to your nearest fast food spot, hoping that they didn't do anything to the food. I mean, look at all of these little viral videos that pop up where at these like burger joints where the person drops the food and picks it up and remakes it and sends it out the window and everybody's laughing. Or how one story I heard from another food spot, not gonna say any names, where it was a person in the bag of lettuce, like I guess like jumping on it, or how the bag of lettuce was inside of like a clean garbage can, but it was like a garbage bag and they had the lettuce in there. It's just certain things you just hear and you be like, no, I don't want that. Or better yet, a wing spot that had their wings sitting on top of the mop bucket to bring the wings into the store. So all these places we go to, we trust people. We trust that the food is going to be hot. We trust that the food will be fresh. Hell, we trust that it doesn't make us sick. But again, we take a lot of things for granted and we don't use our brain enough. Because even at Texas Roadhouse with the family, how do I know that the food is right? You got to trust somebody. So again, when you ride on these planes and different things, you got to look at it the same way. I mean, some people love Trump as a president, right? But there were people behind us talking about how they didn't like Trump basically. So how do we know that the server isn't a Trump supporter and she goes and tells somebody and then they mess? I mean, you just never know with people or anything. So I always say you just got to go forward. What can you really do? What can you really say? Again, I'm not back there cooking the food with you. There's been times that I walked into Foot Locker and I see a shoe that I want. I say, oh, yeah, let me get that in the 12. So they go to the back and they bring it out. I try it on, fits good. But then I look at it, it got a little mark on it or something. So I say, oh, no, I don't want this shoe. You know, you got another one in the back? They bring out another one. That one fits perfectly. So you got to think. They took the shoes back to the back. I already put my feet in them. How many times do they do that? How many times is that accepted before somebody say, all right, now it's getting a little crazy? Just think about it. I wore my own socks. It's not, you didn't provide me with socks. So I wore my socks here. Who's to say what I was doing before I came in here? So I'm putting my foot in this shoe, and then I don't want the shoe, and I'm giving it back to you. And somebody does that 4 times before a person comes in and decides to buy that shoe. You ever thought about that when you were buying shoes? Some spots, didn't they used to let you try on clothes? I think they still do. You got a dressing room, go try this on. And somebody just comes along and buys it. So again, you never know what's really going on. You just got to trust it. Relationship, same thing. How do I know you're not talking to somebody when you're not with me? You just got to trust. You got to trust that everything's going to be okay. Trust that everything's going to be all right. And again, all of these thoughts came from me just actually for the first time ever driving my mom around, driving my grandmother around. I never did that before. But it felt good. And I felt comfortable after a while. But at first, again, like I said, I was nervous, but I guess I was only nervous because these people in the car trusted me with their life. Kind of weird. But that's life. Dear Love T. Shaw, I'm out of here.